Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into a deep dive today that's going to challenge some traditional ideas about what makes you powerful in business and negotiation.
Right.
Forget just looking at balance sheets and market share. We're talking about understanding and using everything in your arsenal as leverage.
That's right. And a really central idea running through the sources you've pulled together for us, including excerpts from The Art of the Deal and some insights on that perception is reality principle, is this concept of strategic leverage.
Uh-huh.
Not just the obvious assets, but things like information, reputation, timing, even the other side's, well, their situation.
Absolutely. And a fascinating thread is how that extends to finance, specifically seeing controlled debt not as, a liability to avoid at all costs.
Yeah, not just a burden.
But as a powerful tool. A tool to amplify results and grab opportunities you otherwise couldn't touch. It's about using borrowed money strategically.
Making it work for you.
So our mission in this deep dive is to pull out the most impactful lessons from these sources. How have these principles been applied in, real-world, high-stakes situations?
And maybe more importantly, how can you think about them in your own world, whatever kind of deals or challenges you might be facing?
Let's start right at the beginning with the core mindset. The sources define leverage pretty simply. Having something the other side wants or needs.
Or just plain can't do without. Yeah.
But what immediately jumps out, I think, is that it's rarely just about owning, a valuable piece of property or having a huge pile of cash.
No, it seems to require a massive amount of imagination and, crucially, salesmanship. It's about convincing the other party that this deal, whatever it is truly in their best interest.
You see this so clearly in the examples. Take the Commodore Hotel deal. The leverage there wasn't initially owning the building, was it?
No, not at all. The key was getting the owners, Penn Central, to go public with their plans to shut the hotel down.
Right. And why did that create leverage?
Well, because suddenly he could go to the city of New York and point to a concrete looming disaster, a huge boarded-up hotel right there next to Grand Central.
Mm-hmm.
His leverage came from identifying the city's worst fear, urban decay in a really prime spot, confirming it through Penn Central's announcement, and then presenting himself as the only solution. He leveraged their fear, basically.
Or think about the Holiday Inn partnership for Atlantic City. He needed them as a partner, right? And he needed them to believe his casino construction was further along than it actually was.
So what was the leverage there? Not the actual bricks and mortar, but the perception of it.
Exactly. He leveraged what they wanted to believe, feeding that impression to get the deal done.
That's such a critical distinction, the power of perception versus the strict factual reality at any given moment. It keeps coming up.
It really does. And even the naming of the West Side Rail Yards project, calling it Television City.
Sounds like marketing, sure.
Yeah, but it was a calculated move, according to the sources, to signal a commitment to keeping television networks anchored in New York. That implication became leverage with the city, appealing to their desire to retain a major industry.
So connecting these dots, leverage isn't just something you have, like an asset. It can be something you create by understanding motivations, anxieties, and projecting a desired outcome.
Which leads us directly to this massively important principle highlighted in the sources. Perception is reality.
Yes, this principle, often associated with how the Trump brand was built, according to these sources, basically argues that how you are perceived can become the dominant reality in business interactions, often more impactful than the, underlying facts.
It's about actively cultivating an aura, isn't it? Controlling the narrative around yourself and your projects.
Yeah, the sources suggest this carefully managed perception can literally sway deals, attract talent who want to be associated with success.
And even make potential competitors think twice before taking you on.
Think about the Trump brand itself as it's described in the sources. It's built on projecting luxury, grandeur, and, undeniable success.
All the gold, the aggressive marketing.
The insistence on premium prices, it all reinforces that brand image. The brand itself becomes leverage you bring to the table before you even sit down.
And the role of media magnetism mentioned in one source is fascinating here. Constantly generating headlines, staying in the public eye.
It solidifies that larger-than-life image. It's not just about popularity. It's about reinforcing the brand's omnipresence and success aura. Any publicity in this view serves to keep the brand visible and potent.
So what's the practical effect of this in a negotiation?
Well, walking in with a reputation for being tough, successful, and resourceful immediately gives you a kind of psychological advantage. The other side isn't just negotiating with a person, they're negotiating with a brand that carries weight and certain expectations.
And maybe the most telling example of perception as reality is maintaining that facade of success and confidence, even during immense pressure, like the financial distress described in the early 90s.
Yeah, the sources describe projecting an absolutely unshakable front, refusing to publicly, acknowledge defeat or weakness.
And that wasn't just ego.
Apparently not just bravado, it was a strategic tool. By convincing banks and creditors he was still the best person to navigate the crisis, he maintained control, avoided liquidation, kept deals alive.
So it wasn't about denying the challenge.
No, more about controlling the perception of the outcome and projecting this absolute conviction that he would succeed. It also, crucially, kept morale high among the people working for him. You need your team to believe.
Okay, let's shift a bit to the actual mechanics of deal-making. Sometimes the sources point out the most effective approach is surprisingly simple.
Like just picking up the phone and saying, I want to buy the 60th Street yards to Victor Palmieri. Directness as leverage. Simple.
True, but then paradoxically, time itself can be a tool. The sources mentioned stalling on that, $250,000 option fee for the Commodore deal.
Yeah, using that delay strategically to line up other pieces, like the partnership with Hyatt, buying time.
And leveraging the opponent's situation is a recurring theme. Back to the Commodore.
Right. The city's financial desperation and their desire for urban renewal became leverage used against them to get favorable terms.
And arguing a kind of moral obligation for banks to finance new developments in a struggling city that also use their need for maybe civic responsibility as leverage.
So it's about truly understanding the pressures, the needs, the vulnerabilities of the person or entity across the table from you. What keeps them up at night?
It seems to also involve a pretty high-stakes approach to negotiation, like asking for an unprecedented tax abatement.
Asking for the world, as one source puts it.
Right, on the calculation that even if they got significantly less, it would still be a massive win.
It's described like a high-stakes poker game. You ask for more than you expect to get what you actually need. You anchor high.
What's particularly fascinating, I think, is how challenges, even opposition, can be turned into leverage. The story of the 100 Central Park South tenants, the ones who successfully delayed the planned demolition, that's a perfect example.
Right. They fought for years, delayed the project, and what happened?
During that time, real estate values in New York just soared.
So this unintentional delay caused by the opposition made the original plan of tearing down the old building way too expensive.
Yeah, it forced a pivot to renovating the adjacent Barbizon Hotel into luxury apartments instead, a different plan entirely.
So their victory in delaying the project ultimately led to a different, less expensive, and ultimately more profitable strategy for him. Their opposition became the catalyst for a better deal because the market changed during the delay they caused.
That's turning obstacles into opportunity right
Yeah.
there. Amazing.
And controlling the public narrative during conflicts is key here, too. In the convention center site battle, his opponent's public complaints and bad-mouthing
He used that.
apparently used it to generate media attention that, in turn, promoted the site's advantages. And the sources mentioned denigrating the competition's bid, within legal limits as part of staking a claim and controlling perception.
So visibility, even negative visibility, can be a form of leverage if you can somehow redirect the attention to serve your goals. Back to perception again.
Always perception.
Now let's get to a core aspect of this deep dive, and maybe the most counterintuitive for some.
Yeah.
Financial leverage. Specifically, the idea that borrowed money debt is a tool.
This is absolutely fundamental to the approach described in the sources. Debt isn't seen as inherently bad or just a burden.
Which is how most people think of it.
Exactly. But here it's viewed as a strategic instrument. You use it to acquire assets, to make deals happen, and to amplify potential profit far beyond what your own available cash would ever allow.
The examples are pretty stark. The West Side Yards deal acquiring options on huge swaths of land valued at $62 million.
With no money down. That is pure leverage based on negotiation and structuring the deal right.
And the St. Moritz Hotel purchase. The sources detail negotiating a price based on current earnings, but leveraging the fact that the adjacent Barbizon Plaza Hotel was closing.
Right. This allowed him to secure financing that was, $6 million more than the actual purchase price.
So, just to be clear, he bought the hotel, put no cash down, and walked away with $6 million in his pocket.
That's how the source describes it. That fundamentally changes how you think about acquiring assets. That is, financial leverage operating on a completely different level.
It absolutely is. Another clever structure was the Bonwit-Teller lease for the space that would become Trump Tower.
Yeah, negotiating an annual rent from Allied, $3 million. That was more than the carrying costs of the land, $2.5 million.
So he effectively owned the land for nothing.
While securing a prestigious tenant needed for zoning approval. The lease itself was leverage. Brilliant, really.
And the Commodore Hyatt deal, that's just a masterclass in leveraging city assets and needs.
The city bought the dilapidated hotel for $1, leased it back, provided huge tax abatements.
This whole elaborate structure meant the massive redevelopment could happen without requiring huge upfront capital investment from his side. It used the city's own resources and its desperate desire for urban renewal as a primary financial leverage.
And the resort's international Taj Mahal deal highlights acting decisively based on opportunity and maybe gut feeling.
Making that huge $320 million bid immediately after Jim Crosby's death and Hilton wanting out.
Required securing a rapid verbal loan commitment, personally guaranteed. That was leveraging the opportunity presented by the situation, backed by the credibility and confidence to get the financing that quickly. Speed was leveraged there.
And let's not forget how related assets can be leveraged, tying back to the St. Moritz again.
Exactly. The planned closure of the Barbizon wasn't just a point of negotiation for the purchase price. It was also leveraged after the purchase to boost occupancy and value at the acquired St. Moritz, positioning it as the luxury alternative once the neighbor was gone, using one asset to boost another.
Okay, so beyond finances and physical assets, leverage also comes from the people you choose, your team, your experts.
Absolutely. The sources discuss the challenge of finding and managing the right talent, noting the difficulty of finding people who are both honest and competent. Seems like a rare combination sometimes.
There's a great line quoted from a manager named Irving about focusing on results. It's not how many hours you put in, it's what you get done while you're working.
A simple metric, but a crucial one for judging effective leverage from people. What impact are they having?
And the stories about managing unconventional talent are remarkable. This Irving character, described as the greatest bullshit artist, and admittedly untrustworthy, even stealing from a funeral fund.
He wasn't just fired.
No. The strategy, as humorously recounted, was essentially keeping a close eye on him. Pay you $50,000 and all you can steal.
Wow. That sounds completely bonkers. But the anecdote about Irving facing down the furious tenant's father, that's unforgettable.
Tell us about that one.
Irving, physically small, didn't use force. He used pure presence, yelling, flailing, showing absolutely zero fear, becoming this whirlwind of noise and motion.
That's what happened.
He effectively acted like a lion tamer, as the source describes it, making a much larger, angrier man back down through sheer force of personality and refusal to be intimidated.
It's a powerful image of using non-physical presence and, I guess, bravado as leverage in a confrontation. Stand tall, hold your ground, don't show fear.
Yeah, and you see the leverage provided by expertise with figures like talented lawyers, Sam Lindenbaum for zoning, Roy Cohn for tough legal battles.
And financial experts like Henry Pierce for navigating complex financing deals. These specialists provide crucial leverage in their specific domains. You need the right people.
The sources also touch on the importance of trust and loyalty. Learning about toughness and loyalty from someone like Roy Cohn, noting his willingness to fight fiercely for friends.
Contrasted with others who maybe lack that loyalty, highlighting it as a valuable, maybe rare form of leverage in a relationship.
No, and the value of trust within the family, with Robert Trump overseeing Atlantic City operations, is also mentioned, knowing you can rely on someone implicitly.
And finally, the role of mentors is noted, learning from positive examples like his father, Fred Trump, and even sort of negatively from his brother Fred's struggles with alcohol. Mentors provide guidance, perspective, another layer of leverage.
So after digging into all these examples and principles from the sources, what does this mean for you, the listener? How do these large-scale tactics apply to your own career, your small business, or even just personal negotiations?
Well, first, maybe think about cultivating your brand, your professional reputation, your online presence. Every interaction contributes to how you're perceived.
Right. The insights on perception is reality suggest you need to be intentional about this. How are you shaping that perception through your resume, your LinkedIn, your conduct in meetings? What story are you telling?
Absolutely. And related to that, project confidence. Whether you're asking for a raise, pitching an idea, buying something big, or negotiating a small deal, confidence is a form of leverage.
Do your homework, know your value, and project that belief in yourself and your position, even if you have to fake it till you make it sometimes.
Manage your narrative, especially when things get tough. Don't let others define your situation. Take control of your story. Communicate your determination. Project a plan, even if you're still, figuring it all out.
And consciously identify your leverage in any given situation. What unique skills, knowledge, network, resources do you bring? In any negotiation or challenge, what does the person you're dealing with truly want or need? How can you influence that? Find your angle.
And drawing from one of the sources, remember the importance of handling pressure and avoiding mediocrity. Success often requires performing under intense pressure.
And letting laziness lead to settling for good enough is identified as a major barrier. Don't coast.
Finally, the idea that doing it purely for the money is probably not going to work, as stated in one source.
Yeah, liking what you do fuels persistence and makes you better at it. That passion can itself become a form of leverage. It drives you to find creative solutions others might miss.
So just to circle back on the core ideas from your sources, it's about leveraging absolutely everything, not just traditional assets, but information, perception, timing, people.
Then, crucially, using controlled debt strategically as a powerful tool to acquire and amplify, seeing it differently.
It's about understanding that how you are perceived can often become the reality you operate within. Shaping that perception is key.
If we think about the bigger picture here, it's about viewing every single element in any situation, positive or negative, as a potential resource or a point of influence that can be used somehow to achieve your objective.
Here's a thought to leave you with, building on these insights. If even years of delays caused by tenacious opposition from tenants could ultimately be turned into a multi-million-dollar advantage because soaring market values and adjusted plans made a better deal possible.
What unexpected challenge or obstacle are you facing right now that, with creativity, persistence, and maybe a shift in perspective, could contain the seeds of your future success? Could that problem actually be an opportunity in disguise?
Or perhaps, considering the power of leverage and perception, what's one small intentional change you could make today, right now, to consciously shape how you are perceived in a key area of your financial or professional life?
Think about which insight from these sources resonates most powerfully with you. Was it the sheer power of perception? The counterintuitive idea of debt as a tool, leveraging an opponent's situation?
Or maybe that incredible image of using pure presence and bravado like a lion tamer to hold your ground.
Whatever it is, the goal of this deep dive was really just to give you some different lenses, some different ways to view the resources and challenges in your own world.